So immediately I go into the drum library and I find myself a sound, and my mind was going towards the 909 sounds, maybe a 909 rim shot. How about that? So the 909 rim shot, I just drag it out of the library and onto a track, and it gives this kind of a sound. And what we're going to then do is we're going to take an audio effect. We're going to put it into a reverb unit, and when I'm going to put it to a long decay time, I'm going to hit go, and then hit freeze. No hands. See, now this is going to play forever. This is very close to what I want. But in fact, I'm going to make it a bit more dense by turning off the cut function. And so when I play new notes, they're going to add to this note, and I'm going to pitch them up and down a little bit. So it's like... yeah, this is this nice industrial kind of warehouse reverb. Now, let's put some movement on there. Now, when you think about movement, I often think about chorus, flanger, phaser, and frequency shifter. I think frequency shifter is going to work quite nicely. So let's put frequency shifter on there. Oops. And then when we do that, we can turn on the LFO of the frequency shifter. So let's turn it on. You hear this? Now, twice per second, 0.5 hertz means twice per second. It's going up and down, and it's doing it stereo. But I don't really want it to draw attention to the stereo spectrum that way. I want this to be a subtle element. So let's put the phase to 0. Now the whole thing is in sync, going up and down. And I think I want it to go even a little bit further. Yeah, something like this. And then I want it way slower. Something like this. Still a bit too fast for me, and a bit too much. That's pretty cool. Let's look at the equalization. This sound has a lot of low mids, and those frequencies are quite precious. These frequencies right here are the frequencies that a lot of elements are going to be competing for, so if an element is not super valuable in those frequencies, I'd prefer to cut it a bit. And anyway, we can high pass it. There we go. It's just like wind in the background. I love that. Okay, so we're going to call this Atmo Idea 1, and we're going to resample it. So make an audio track with Control T, take Atmo Idea 1, and I just hit record here. And literally just record whatever's coming out. There you go. See, whatever's coming out of Atmo Idea 1 is now coming into this, this audio track. And I'll rename this, calling this Atmo Bounce 1, and now we just need to let it go. This is the moment to be a little bit patient, because I think it's worthwhile having this thing organically grow and shrink over the course of a minute or 2 minutes. That way we don't have to like end up copy pasting complicated stuff in our track. We can just take this massive wall of sound and let it do its thing. You know, you might ask me, why not just leave it like this? Why rebounce it at all? Well, there's a whole bunch of good reasons for it. One of the good reasons is that at any point, your freeze here might start to behave differently than you expected. Like for some reason the sound might cut, or it might get louder, or you don't know what. And that'll take the stability of your whole track out of stability. The cool thing about having something that's really complex that then goes into a sweet spot that's like jamming exactly as you want it to jam is that then when you bounce it to audio, it's never going to change. It's never going to accidentally change some parameters and then trip you up. Because that's one of the most frustrating things in the track, is when there's so much complexity, everything sounds good together, and then suddenly some parameter has switched and you're not entirely sure what it is, but something doesn't sound the way it was before, and good luck, you know? Like there's a lot of problems to solve in a big track like this. So simplify what you know is already good enough. And even if in this later on I want to change some things, well, I can still work on the audio. I can still do things like equalization. I can add more effects later if I want. I can use this as raw material that's already really good. And I like the fact that I can now use this bouncing process to tell you about it, because it's like gives me a little bit of opportunity to just give some intermediate advice. So we're coming up onto the 2-minute mark. I want to let it go for just a tiny bit more, because one of the first things we're going to have to do is copy it over, and then we're going to have to fade one into the other, and sometimes that's a bit of a hassle. So giving yourself a lot of raw footage is enough. Let's already think about the second idea. Like I said, I want to make multiple ideas of everything so that I can choose which one vibes best with the other elements. If you only make one version of everything, sometimes it's not always the best choice, you know. That's a really big workflow issue, is that if you only choose one, if you only make one element for that function in your track, maybe you only make that element 60% good, because you're like, oh, I need a hi-hat now, let me make a hi-hat, and then you say good enough. Whereas if you had a library of hi-hats, of hi-hat lines, and you checked which ones matched the vibe of the rest of your track the best, it might be one of the ones that you didn't make in the spot, you know? So the same with this. So for the next one, I want to use a different type of tone, because this sounds like wind, right? Hey, let me stop recording. And let me turn that off. This one sounds like wind, and that's all fine and well. Wind is cool to have that sort of blowing around your track, but I'm thinking of using some other kind of organic sounds as the trigger sound for this same signal chain. And particularly I'm thinking of things like metallic sounds, like knives, or things scraping on top of each other, maybe paper, but I want something a little bit more industrial, a little bit more aggressive. Some metallic banging sounds or something. And so it's wise to go to a website called freesound.org. Freesound.org is a website where they use audio recorders, like field recorders, and they go out and they record everyday objects that are organic objects, not synthetic sounds. So not synthesizers, not drum machines, but sounds that are in our real environment. And I call them Foley sounds a lot, because that's often what they're made for, just to put into movies, and then people who work in that domain are called Foley artists. That's what that's called. So Foley recordings are a great way to add a recognizable texture, an organic touch to a texture that's otherwise going to be very synthetic. Otherwise, it might mean all the other elements I'm going to use are probably based on drum machines and synthesizers. So to give that human ear like a little bit more info to work with, let's have a look at what I've got in my sample pack for Foley sounds. Under Foley and texture, metallic sounds and banging. How about knives? That's pretty cool. Let's check this out. So here we go. So let's refresh the freeze. Oh, amazing. Big fan of this. Let's try ring modulation instead of oh, that's weird. That's really odd. Let's make it even slower. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Let me make it a bit louder here for me. That's such a strange sound. Cool. Well, let's grab it. Let's grab it. It certainly is moving, but it's so unusual. And there we go. So now let's try one more, and let's push it even a little bit further. So let's see, what else have we got? Left field unexpected sounds. So Look Mom No Computer did a whole bunch of stuff with his subharmonicon. So let's see what came out of there. Let's see what that gives. Oh, that's good. No, don't like that. Too tonal. I'm not sure what I'm looking for. Don't like that. No, let's not go for that. Let's not go for that. What's this? No, noise. No. How about some lights? Ah, that's good, right? Some smashing light bulbs. That's good. Set the quality to high. Oh, I like that quite a lot. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is pretty wild. I love this. No. Yes. This has a slight movement in it. It's again quite wind-based, isn't it? It's got a lot of high-end energy. Maybe a bit too much? Can always cut away from it later. What effects could we put on this? Maybe some bit crushing. Let's see what that does, no? I kind of like this. Let me put the LFO on there. I feel like we're not doing those high-end peaks justice. I feel like we're not doing those high-end peaks justice. I feel like we are adding this digital noise to something that's actually quite fresh and pure in a very nice way. So let's not bit crush. It's very unusual for me to say that. Let's do another frequency shifter and just pitch the whole thing down. Let's see what it does. Oh, sorry, I meant this. Interesting. Which one do I prefer? I think this will leave more space for elements. Let's try a resonator. I'm not sure if it's going to be any good. Some presets. Nah. Of course it's all too tonal. It's not what I wanted, right? How about the grain delay? What can that do? Not bad. Sounds a bit digital. Nah. A bit too seasick, no? No. I quite like what we've got here. Let's just work with what we've got. Let's record that. Let's not record automation and all of this kind of things. Awesome. So while that's recording, let me just turn it down so I can speak to you. I want to talk about the importance of bouncing these things to audio, also from the perspective of keeping this for a future project.